While the boys are working on complicated roofing projects, I am out here in my garden. I'm going to finally harvest my basil and make pesto today. I've been meaning to do that, but there's always been some other project like canning okra, canning green beans, canning applesauce, and I need to get this basil before it goes to flower. I have some pretty good basil, looking pretty good. I'm not sure what this one has these black spots on it for. That's kind of weird. This one is really big. And I have two more. I had gotten these basil plants at Lowe's. I think I got 3 pots worth when they were on sale. And then I split them up, and I actually have 1 or 2 down in my other herb garden. And so these 2 are smallish, but the other ones have really opened up and thrived. So we'll get a decent amount for pesto, which is wonderful. Okay, since we are in October now, I'm not going to have a lot of growing season left on my basil, so I'm just going to implement the handy choppers and I'm just going to chop it down. I don't anticipate a lot more growth on them. If it grows a little more, that's great. We'll just pick off the leaves when we get them, but I'm not thinking that it's going to do a whole lot more this season. I could hardly bear to cut every single basil plant down, so I left a couple of twigs on this one to give me a few fresh leaves when I want them. I did knock the top off because maybe I'm hoping that it'll prevent it from flowering so soon. My garden is turned into a jungle. I've got potatoes that have come back from when I've tried to dig them up before. I've got tomatillos that are, I don't know if they're gonna be able to actually mature enough this year. I'm thinking not. I've got a chocolate pepper in here that is looking kind of chocolatey. It's looking good. I'm just gonna let it keep growing because it has a little bit of green on the shoulder. My marigolds have gone crazy. My zinnias are pretty. Everything is kind of coming to the end of the season, but I did get a big pot. This is my canning pot of basil, so that should be plenty for making pesto. Actually, I almost forgot. I was going to harvest some of this Thai sweet basil to add to our basil too. This has already flowered, and so, oh well, it'll might maybe lose a little bit of its flavor, but this adds a different spicy flavor. In years past, when I've needed to add a little bulk to my basil pesto, I have added kale. This year, my big old kale plant is not looking so hot. I'm not gonna try to add that. It looks kind of like it got buggy. So we're just gonna let that thing be. This is more of our holy basil. It's a 3 or 4 foot tall plant, and the bumblebee is just taking a rest on there right now. I don't know what he's doing. He looks like he's chilling. The other one behind him is busy as a bee, but this one's taking a nap. The bees do love the holy basil, and so do we. We got a nice variety of basil and the last of the garden tomatoes for the year. Beautiful plants. It's sad to see it coming to an end, but I'm excited about the pesto. These are the ingredients that you are going to want to use to make a delicious vegan or plant-based pesto. The most important ingredient, of course, is going to be your basil. You need to have freshly picked basil, and this variety right here is a Thai sweet basil, which I'm going to be mixing in part of what I'm making today. And then we also have a sweet or Genovese basil that can be used. You can really use whatever flavor of basil that you like the best. I like the traditional, just straight basil flavor for most of my basil. I want to use an olive oil. I like to get a good quality. This is an organic olive oil. garlic, you're going to need lots of cloves of garlic, and if we need more, we have more. These were harvested from our garden this summer. A good quality salt, I like to use the Himalayan pink salt, and instead of using the pine nuts, which most traditional pesto recipes call for, I'm using cashews this time. The main reason is because the pine nuts are super expensive. Now cashews are pretty expensive too. Any kind of nut is expensive, but I just kind of try to figure out which ones are going to be the most accessible to me. I actually got these at Aldi. They were a decent price for nuts. Just make sure they're unsalted so that you're not adding additional salt to that. Okay, I add bottled lemon juice, and you can definitely use fresh lemon juice if you have them. If you have lemons, and if you run out, it's perfectly acceptable to try and see if lime juice will work, and that's what we're doing today. Okay, the last ingredient that I'm going to mention is the nutritional yeast flakes. I get these locally at our Mennonite store, which is Yoder's. If you are curious about that, I did a video recently about that. These are nutritional yeast flakes. They lend a cheesy flavor because most pestos will take some type of cheese in the ingredients. Since this is a vegan recipe, I'm not using cheese. I am using a certain amount of nutritional yeast flakes for every blender full. So it really does add a nice flavor to your pesto. This is my basil harvest for today. It is quite a bit. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to rinse it off, make sure there's no bugs or critters in it, and then I'm going to pluck the leaves off the stems and put them in my blender. I have the recipe for plant-based pesto up on my blog, and I will link that in the description so that you'll know exactly how much of each to put in. But I will tell you that when I'm making a bulk quantity, sometimes I just go with what I have and I look at the ingredients and I try to kind of adjust it to make it work, because it's not an exact science. This doesn't have to be precise. You can gauge it by what you have and how spicy you want it, how cheesy you want it, all those factors. To prepare my garlic, I like to use the hack from the Crazy Russian. We just throw a bunch of cloves in either a large pot or a colander or a bowl that you have a lid that you can put on. I'm just throwing a bunch in here, and then you're going to shake, 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 and that will help to loosen those paper peeling. So I'm going to put this bowl onto it, and I'm just going to go ahead and shake it a lot. Okay, that wasn't much shaking, honestly, but it got some of them really peeled, and looks like these may need to be rinsed off. I'm stripping the leaves off my basil stalks. You don't want to use the woody parts because they get pretty woody, but the tops, if they're tender, they're fine to use the tops of the stalk. You want to pack your blender a good ways full, like probably 2/3, and you can push it down and you can just pack more in there. It's smelling really good so far. I can smell the garlic and the basil. I love the smell of fresh basil. Okay, for this first load, I am putting some of the Thai sweet basil in. I know that they do make pesto from Thai sweet basil, and you can use 100% Thai sweet basil. I remember last year in the Baker Creek catalog, they had a recipe for pesto made from Thai sweet basil, and you know, of course, we got our seeds from Baker Creek. For every 4 cups of basil leaves, I want to add a half a cup of cashews. I'm going to add at least 4 garlic cloves. I might add 5. Just depends how spicy you like it. Approximately 1/4 cup of lemon juice. You can adjust this if you don't like it too lemony. I don't mind a little bit of lemon zestiness in mine. And then you want to add a teaspoon of salt and olive oil. You want to add 1/4 cup of olive oil to each 4 cups. Now, I'm going to tell you, real life is when you start to blend this, because it depends on how much you pack your blender as to how much it's going to go. Okay, one thing I did forget was the yeast flakes. You want to add 1/4 cup of nutritional yeast flakes. There we go. Now we have everything. You want to blend that down. You want to tamp it as you're blending it. And you want to blend this on low. And if you have a food processor, I believe that would probably work better. I don't have one, so there we go. You want the blade spinning kind of at a medium rate, because if you have it too fast, it's not going to leave you a nice chunky pesto, and that's what you want. You don't want it pureed. Well, I mean, if you want it pureed, you can do that, but most of the time pesto is not 100% pureed. So we're going to turn the blender on, and then we're going to make adjustments. I don't mind if mine are still a little bit chunky. So this is what you're after, something that is kind of a still green from the leaves. The nuts are broken down a little bit. Do you see how much that reduced? It reduced a lot. Yeah, there you have it. It's very easy. Vegan pesto, no animal products in here at all. Gonna load up my jars. I still have a few basil leaves in here, the smaller ones that are whole. That doesn't really bother me though. I tasted it, it's so good. It's just so fresh and good. We're gonna have some on baked potatoes for lunch today. One thing that I like to do when I am freezing this, I like to fill my jars, and then a lot of times I will just pour a little bit of olive oil on the top of it to prevent it from oxidizing. Yeah, that's just one of the things that I do before I put it in the freezer. Allow a little bit of headspace in there because it's going to expand a little when you freeze it, and you certainly do not want a jar of this to break. There you go, easy vegan pesto. Yummy, so yummy. Let me know if you make some vegan pesto. Don't forget to take a second to like this post, save it, share it, and subscribe to our channel. Have a great day.